Yes. Guess who? You are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports is Ordered. We got Mr. Logical in the house.
You're
And of course, I'm 2-5. Tonight. That's my radio voice, y'all. Tonight. Getting something off our chest as we usually do and as only we can. Then we're going to preview the NFC South. The South will not rise again. And then we're going to talk about the memo that the NBA sent out to these 30 teams, letting them know that Damian Lillard could be coming to a franchise near you. But Mr. Logical, what's the word?
just over here watching this Hall of Fame game. Standard
Worst football
NFL.
game I've ever seen.
NFL highlights on the TV.
Yo, I
I
don't
have
know.
some of my military memorabilia in the background for the aesthetic. You know what I mean? Shout out to Korea, 51st Maintenance Squadron, 52nd Component Maintenance Squadron, Spain Island Air Base. I was there from 01 to 05. And if you look up top, I have another one for Honor Guard.
Yay.
Did a year with the Honor Guard during the 60th anniversary of World War II. It was very eye-opening. I went to Belgium and did a ceremony in Belgium. One of the guys' grandmothers was there, and she was part of the group of people that were basically held captive by the Nazis, and these army soldiers came in and freed them, and a couple of those guys were there. So it was it was a lot of fun to see that, and to see these guys that gave their speeches, the passion they had, like literally like they had fought on that road that I was marching down for this parade with the Honor Guard 6 years earlier. So that's why I figured I got to get some of this stuff on the wall. I did a lot of time, so I might as well just start displaying it. Celebrating your career.
For sure.
So
For
that's my plug for the day.
So I'm hoping not to make light of what you just said because that's special, but hopefully I can survive this football game because I'm trying to figure out, I get it, right? We haven't had football since February. So besides the XFL, but I imagine a lot of people that are excited for the NFL tonight might not have watched the XFL, but as I sit here watching the Karen Rodgers less Jets against the Deshaun Cosby less Browns, I'm sitting here trying to figure out why sports fans do these things to me. Mr. Logical always talks about how I get all emotionally invested into the sports, and it drives me nuts. So what drives me nuts today?
2-5.
What drives me nuts today is that I've been waiting for football just like y'all. You know what I mean? But I got morals and principles, y'all. So I was looking at this, and the cheapest ticket I found on StubHub for this abomination that's on my TV right now was $146 to get into Canton, Ohio tonight. And I was sitting there, and it took me back to just 2 months ago where people said, "Oh, Heat Nuggets, who wants to watch that? Nobody cares about the Heat and the Nuggets. Where's the Lakers? Oh, I need this." And I'm sitting up here like, so you're watching Kellen Mond against Zach Wilson. And this is supposed to be entertaining.
Riveting football.
I think not. How did we get here? Like, how did we get to this point where football is like a religion for us, to the standpoint that we will put up with this garbage in the sake of, I don't know, is it just an excuse to get drunk so everybody's excited? Like, you could break out the Coors Light that you had hidden when your boy didn't want you to drink Coors Light no more a couple of months ago. Now you're going to dust them off and bring them back out the garage because it's okay to support Bud Light again. I don't understand what we're doing right now. Like, because I'm sitting here and I can honestly tell you, I have never watched one NBA preseason game. I have never like watched any spring training. Like I get reports, I keep up with it, I read it. Don't watch it at all. The only reason I'm watching this right now is because we're recording right now, and I needed something on in the background, and
Got to be in the sports mode.
yeah, I got to be in the sports mode. But all I'm watching is two bum ass franchises playing the bummiest of their bummiest players, and you want me to be excited. You know what I'm saying? So as Mr. Logical says, if you go and tank, what I'm saying, don't charge me regular prices. So for the people that are in this stadium right now, I get it. Canton doesn't have a team. The locals probably, but I'm sure there's people that flew from all over, because it is the Hall of Fame game. Give these people something to watch. Throw Aaron Rodgers out there for 2 series. Let Deshaun, get out there and throw something around. You know what I mean? Like just give these people a reason to come to the stadium and give me a reason to want to turn on the TV. That's what I wanted to get off my chest.
We was gonna watch no matter what.
I know.
Aaron wasn't playing. Zach Wilson was drafted number 2 overall a couple years ago. He shouldn't be playing. People at Canton, Ohio, I'm not sure where Canton is in relation to Cleveland or Cincinnati, but I imagine that Ohio's a pretty decent sized state. I'm not sure exactly where Canton is, but the $146 for this game at this field is probably a field they use for like big high school games because Ohio football is pretty huge. Like being Mr. Ohio, and football is pretty big.
So looking at a quick
map,
looking at a quick map real quick. So Akron is basically centered between Canton and Cleveland, and so Canton, I guess, would be closer to Youngstown, for example. So probably going into that Pennsylvania side of Ohio.
So they're probably more Steelers fans in Canton.
That makes sense to me.
Okay. But yeah, so I mean, they get the game, but to answer your question of why we watch this, I saw something interesting yesterday on social media. And it said that men are dreamers. It was a conversation about like why men don't celebrate their birthdays or something like that. It's like because men are dreamers. Like we have visions of like what life is supposed to be like at a certain age, and when your birthday comes around, if it doesn't really line up, you don't really want to celebrate it. But if you are a fan of a sports franchise and it's a football franchise and it's August, that dream is huge. This is our year. Josh Allen looks good. He's lost like 10 pounds of fat, put on 5 pounds of muscle. He's running like a 4.4. Stephon Diggs, they did this Kumbaya camp. Oh, man, we're going to get Delvin Cook for the cheap. Oh, we're going to get this. Oh, that left tackle we got out of Youngstown State, oh, he's going to be a stud. Everybody's dreaming. That's why we are watching this game. That's why I have on this iPad here next to me. That's why you have it on your TV there. Not just because we're recording, but we would have watched it anyway. It would have been on in some form of fashion.
I don't think I would have watched it. I didn't watch it last year.
You would have been just kind of wandering around, but it would have probably been on the TV.
I didn't watch it last year. Last year I was.
We would have talked about it. If we weren't recording tonight, we would have recorded tomorrow. We would have talked about the game and whatever the case. So at some point,
I would have probably said something like Mekhi Becton limping off the field, but you know what I mean. Yeah. I would have read that online. I wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah, so I mean, it happens. So, but yeah, like I can see what you mean, but we're gonna watch because we're dreamers. Like we're gonna do our NFC South preview, and I'm Atlanta Falcons fans. I'm gonna try to hold down my emotions, but everything we're saying here is just like, hey, it's all just banter and fantasy mixed in with some fact based off history. But
yeah,
we're dreamers, man, and that's why we watch every year. That's why Florida State fans come out excited every year. That's why LSU fans come out excited every year. That's why
y'all Labor Day weekend, baby.
This is why we watch the draft. This is why.
But that's why I like college football. Ain't no preseason. Just get out on the field and smack somebody.
Yeah, but it's a lot of spring games because they put out stats for that spring game, and we talk about that spring game.
But the spring game
too.
is against yourself, though. Like, you know what I mean? It's
basically but it's still it's the same premise as this Hall of Fame game where
Yeah,
it's just
and all y'all people in Columbus, Ohio, I need y'all to get a life. How the hell did 90,000 of y'all have enough time to go to Ohio State's spring game?
oh, Alabama had the same thing. Listen, I went to
It's
Pittsburgh.
ignorant.
I went to Pittsburgh 2 years ago for that weekend, and they had their spring game. And it was a bunch. This was the year Kenny Pickett got drafted, so he wasn't even on the team anymore. There's a bunch of people at Heinz Field watching their spring game.
Watching Keaton Slovis.
So, yeah, now that Mike, got all mad at football because it's not the NBA Finals and all these other fans, I'm gonna lighten the mood. I might get off my chest because it's just more of a self-preservation thing. Y'all got to stop getting out here in these rodeos and trying to play rodeo clown with these bulls. I've seen like 3 videos come to my phone in the last like 24 hours of people. Oh, you got to stand in this circle and avoid the bull. It's like, listen, if you go to the rodeo and you have 8 or 9 Milwaukee Bests in the parking lot, and then you come in and you sneak a little jack in, it doesn't make you invincible to bulls. Don't go out there in your capri pants and your mom tank top and think you go just tap this bull. Like it's not a good look. Stop risking your organs. It's not Spain where it's tradition and you can get a hell of a lead on these bulls or run sideways. You are in a ring of dirt with an animal that runs through dirt. Humans don't run through dirt. Why do you think people working out on the beach is tough? Why do you think NFL players work out on the beach? Because it's tougher to run through sand and mud and dirt. You out there in your mom jeans or your Carhartt work pants straight from the mechanic shop. Like, stop it. Stop risking your liver and your kidneys and your neck for entertainment when people are already out here willing to ride the bull. There's people already that are wearing cages and chest plates, and you out here in a tank top and capri pants. Leave these bulls alone. It is not fun. It is not a good look to risk your life for my 60-second Instagram video
Yo,
entertainment. Stop doing it.
how long does that last? Because I know like when you're riding the bull, like at the rodeo, if
It's
you
an
can
eight
stay on for
second
8 seconds,
eight seconds.
yeah.
These are just people.
These are just people running from the bull.
People came out of the audience into the rodeo ring and they let the bull out. And I don't know if it's like a $50 prize or like a Walmart gift card. I have no idea what it is, but whatever it is, it's not worth the liver. I'm telling you, man, this lady got hit so hard by this bull. And the thing about it, she was the closest one to the gate. They opened the gate and she just froze. And this bull hit her like a. Remember how Reggie Bush got hit when Drew Brees threw that little screen pass? And then it looked like that, except she flew like 15 feet. But they kept the little contest going while she just laid in the dirt. I swear to God, man, like she just was laying in the dirt. And they were like, all right, everyone get out of the ring now. Now we're going to call the EMT. This lady laid there for this entire event while this bull just was chasing 3 other people who saw that and then think to yourself, you know what?
We got to find out who she is and get her on the show.
Listen, man, she was like her hands were like this. She just was laying in the dirt. And I was like, why are people doing this? But like I said, I saw like 2 or 3 of these videos. I'm like, I got to say this, man. Listen, leave these goddamn animals alone. Jesus Christ. I feel sad I got to say that to people. But
yeah. Hey, you got to tell people, about the stairs and elevators during a fire. So, you know what I mean? It's just the way it is, So, the other night, we gave you our NFC East picks. Tonight, we transition on down to the NFC South, soon to be followed by the NFC North. So, I mean, I think we're pretty much in agreement that those dirty ass birds going to win the division.
Yeah. And that is it's based off of my intense analytical research.
Yeah, tell me about how they gonna go 13-4.
Listen, I didn't say they're going 13-4. Never said that. But what I said was, because we talked about this a few months ago, they're playing. Granted, Atlanta has a second-year quarterback that's young. but of their 17 games, I think something like 12 of them against guys who are either Baker Mayfield is essentially a cast off. He's at this point he's a journeyman,
Well, how about this? I
very
got one
short
even
leash.
better for you. I got one even better for you.
Here we go.
Atlanta has the easiest strength of schedule in the NFL. Their opponents won 41.7% of their games last year, and they only play 4 playoff teams from last year.
Hey, 4 out of 14, I'll take it.
Yeah, there you go. And of course, Tampa won the division last year, so 2 of those 4 games are against Tampa. There you have it.
Listen, the NFL, like we talked about this before, the NFL does a better job of ensuring. I think the MLB does a pretty good job of it too, of teams being able to go from worst to first, because that just revamps the dreamer. That's probably gonna be a theme of the show. The dreamer aspect of the fan.
Right.
If I'm a Detroit Pistons fan, I know if I'm an Orlando Magic's fan, if I'm a who's like San Antonio's been in the
The
bottom of the barrel for
Rockets.
last year, the Rockets. It's like once you get there in this league, if you don't get a splash free agent or 2 at the same time, you're gonna stay there. The Clippers, if the Clippers don't land Kawhi and Paul George at the same time, then they just get Kawhi and Kawhi's out, and they got the rest of the team that they had, and Kawhi's always out. Then they would have been in the bottom, and then Kawhi probably would have already been gone. I would have to deal him. So the NFL, you get that opportunity. If you had a terrible year, your following year you're going to end up with a schedule similar to like the NFC South has. Or if you're a fourth place team, you're gonna play a bunch of fourth place teams throughout the league, and maybe one of those teams makes a turnaround, and you get three or four easy fourth place teams you got to play because they didn't make their turnaround because they're still bad a couple of years in a row. Like a team like Houston, they might be bad a couple of years in a row, but they got a couple of good picks. They make a couple of good trades. I mean, they got Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud this year. So it's like things like that. The NFL allows for that. I think the NFC South is going to be a prime example of your ability to go from not being a contender one year to outright being the best looking team in your division the following
Well,
year.
the other reason that I picked Atlanta, I think, is that they look like the only team in the division that did something in the offseason. Jesse Bates, Calais Campbell,
Jeff
Matt
Okuda,
Collins. Yeah, Jeff Okuda, Matt Collins, even Scotty Miller in the slot. So, you got that going for you. Whereas when I look at the Saints, they added Derek Carr, but not really much else. You're getting Michael
correct?
Thomas back allegedly. You know what I
Maybe
mean? Allegedly.
maybe
You
his
know,
pinky toe might hurt.
Tampa, got Baker Mayfield. They lost Fournette, and brought in Chase Edmonds. And then Carolina brought in
Why
Miles
didn't
Sanders.
why didn't Tampa Bay go for a different quarterback? Like, what held them up? Because Tom Brady retired rather early, right? Like,
Well,
he gave them
okay,
it was a big window of time.
so let's think about this. Are you talking about as
Like
far as
Jimmy
in the
Garoppolo,
draft, or are you talking about like a veteran?
a veteran, like Jimmy
Well, Jimmy
Garoppolo.
Garoppolo was coming off an injury, and so they probably didn't know his status, or possibly didn't think he was going to be ready come opening day. So that could be a possibility. Derek Carr, I don't know why they didn't go after Derek Carr. As far as the draft, if I remember correctly, they were 19. So they probably didn't have enough to climb up to try to get, one of the studs. And then people felt like after those top 3 or 4 quarterbacks, the quarterbacks in the draft were nothing to really write home about. So yeah, and they did pick up John Walford, so I mean they did that, so
Powers out the stadium.
but Chase Edmonds, you know what I mean, for Tampa, his career high, and this is only due to playing time, so I'm not knocking him. I'm just saying, like, playing time. He's been a backup, third down back, all that good stuff like that. So his career high in a season is 4 touchdowns, and his career high in yards per game is 49. Now, granted, they do have Rashard White, who I like a lot. He's in that Tony Pollard
But they
kind of,
don't run the ball
but
at
they don't
all
run
in
the
Tampa
ball enough, right? And
at all.
I don't think their offensive line is going to be much better this year either, which is why, I don't have them winning the division, even though they have a guy that has caught at least 1,000 yards for 9 straight seasons.
But like, I mean, if you think about those, I'm not gonna knock his talent, but it is akin to just padding his stats because one season he caught a slant and made to like 1,008 yards and then was out for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So if he drops that ball, we don't even have this conversation, but he was like 1,008 yards. It was a 16 game season. So that was like 70 something yards a game or 60 something yards a game, 60 or 70 yards a game, if my math is correct. So it's like, I get the stats, like, oh, yeah. But it's like, when you say over 1,000 yards, I'm thinking like over 1,000 yards, not this last slant pass you caught put you at 1,008.
Right.
Like, I think it was like either with Jameis or Tom Brady. I can't remember who, but it was like, I remember he just caught the slant and he like slipped down the goal line and it was like, oh, he's injured. I'm not, like I said, I'm not knocking it. I just think that I think sometimes we put too much credence to these streaks where it's like, what's the context? They weren't a
You would
good
have
football
loved it
team
if it
for
was
all those years.
Julio.
Julio probably did it.
You know what I'm saying? You would have loved
He
it.
has like something like Julio has something like the most receiving yards per game average. But I'm like, all right, where is that in the red zone? Like,
Right.
give me the touchdown so we can win these games instead of losing games 24-20 because it's 4th and 2 from the 3 and we can't get this passing. Like, I'd rather you have 700 yards but catch 17 touchdowns. I mean, granted that's pretty outrageous,
Right.
but like,
Right.
I'd rather you put points on the board than yards in your yards column.
Well, like the other thing, another reason, if you want another reason why I picked Atlanta, is because I feel that Atlanta has the most consistently dependable stat. I guess like, so basically, they were third in rushing yards last year and third in yards per game. And oh, by the way, they just went and drafted the best running back in the draft, probably going to be a top 5 running back by the end of next season, not this season, but next season, and maybe going into the season after that. Whereas the Saints, on the other hand, who was the other team that I toggled between winning the division, they are consistently bad. So they were number 27. I mean, granted, they picked up Derek Carr, so this should change somewhat, but they were number 27 in passing, and they were number 27 against the run and against the pass. So,
I have here my note for New Orleans is hype versus results. Every year, it just seems like they have like there's names that jump: Cameron Jordan, Demario Davis,
Marcus
uh,
Lattimore.
Marcus. Like you have these names, but then you have to say the head coach Dennis Allen hasn't proven that he's a good coach in his 2 stints as head coach in the NFL.
Right.
I like Derek Carr. I think we talked about his extension. That was one of our earliest episodes talking about how you sign a man to an extension in April 2022 and then act like you don't want him in March 2023
Right.
before you got to start paying him. It just seems a little foul. So I give him credence for that because it's like I was upset with that the way they treated him, but I'm not sure that New Orleans offensive design or scheme does Derek Carr make them any better. And it's rare that a quarterback goes from one team where he was essentially a cast off and goes to another team and lights it up. Drew Brees was exception to the rule. Tom Brady was, he was 6 Super Bowls deep before he went to Tampa Bay. I don't think anyone was expecting him to get a 7th, and he ended up getting one.
Right.
But like Jimmy Garoppolo went from New England to San Francisco. He's been good, but it's been stories injury prone. They draft multiple quarterbacks since he's been there. Geno Smith bounced around, and he had a nice little run in Seattle, but they weren't expecting him to have a nice little run. They didn't bring Geno Smith in with his expectation that they're leveraging on to Derek Carr, because Derek Carr is coming in as being viewed as a good quarterback that just had essentially a relationship fallout with his head coach and GM.
I still don't know what Dirk Carr is. Like, there was a time where he was a semi MVP candidate, got
The year he
injured.
broke his leg. Yeah, he broke
Yeah,
his leg that year.
and then he was never really the same since. I think he's still a good quarterback. I think he's a good enough quarterback to win this division,
It's Dak
considering
Prescott. Dak Prescott with less touchdown passes.
well, considering the other quarterbacks in this division, he is a good enough quarterback to win this division.
He's the best one in the
But
division for
you know,
sure.
but also, and
That's like being the tallest midget, though.
but what you can't say that word.
Yeah, I
But
don't care about
but
that.
but what I had to take
They'll
into
be all right.
consideration, but what I had to take into consideration is I also don't know what Alvin Kamara's status is going to be. You know, is he
I
going to
think
get suspended by the league?
they pleaded it. They pleaded down to like it's gonna be like either a misdemeanor charge or a no contest, which is basically saying like, listen, we're not
I
gonna
mean, he
fight it.
still did what he did, like regardless of what happens with the charges. Like in the NFL, we've seen that. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger never got charged with,
Yeah, but this
anything.
happened. They would have under the way the NFL has done things. He would have got suspended last season. Like they don't wait for the criminal process. They get the video. Like when Kareem Hunt he assaulted that woman in the hotel. They suspended him. I don't know what his charges were. I don't know what it was. But
Well,
I
I think they
remember when the
learned their
video came
lesson.
out
Well, I think they
with
learned
the
their
Ray
lesson
Rice.
after Ray Rice. You know, when they gave him 2
because
games, and then we found out that they had saw the video
no, that's
that
the
we
thing.
saw.
They didn't see the video. He gave them an accurate account of what eventually people saw on video. So he told them, "Hey, I was in the elevator. We had this altercation. Yada yada. She ran at me. I hit her, and I knocked her out. And then I was trying to get out of the elevator.
Yeah,
So they were like, "All right, cool, 2 games." And then that hotel, um, that hotel went under. So I think security, because that's just like I probably mentioned this to you before, but that's the same hotel that Solange fought Jay-Z in the
in the
elevator,
elevator. Yeah,
and that information that came out. So it was like somebody was in security, like recording the screen and sold it to TMZ. And so when the information came out, it was like, yo, you can't make a suspension worse because he told you the truth. Because even Ozzie Newsome came out, I was like, oh yeah, he told us what happened. And it was like, so
right.
why they go from 2 to 6? Like, oh, because other people saw it. And like, you saw the end part of the video, like just the way he kind of just dragged her out. It was like
Right.
you should have known. You should have known that was more than 2 games off the rip.
Right.
So
but Atlanta also has by far the best offensive line in the division. You know, and probably what I would consider, not that I'm an offensive line aficionado or anything, but I would say it's probably a top 6 or 7 offensive line in the league, and maybe even a little bit higher than
yeah,
that.
I don't know how they rate it because I know it's like is it the rush yards because the offensive line and rush yards that could be because you have a good quality running back. The sack numbers you could just have a quarterback like Peyton Manning would just get rid of the ball.
Right.
But Carson Wentz will hold on to the ball. So
Right.
Philly's offensive line has always been good, but they look bad when the quarterback stands back there and doesn't let the ball go. Jalen Hurts, he gets rid of the ball, he gets out of the pocket.
Right.
He gets out of it, so it's like I think the ratings can kind of fluctuate. But you can tell like certain situations, like these guys aren't getting beat just consistently. They address the offensive line probably every year. I think they got a guy at Northwestern in the draft. Then they got Lindstrom, they just paid him. I think he's the highest paid guard in the league. Got Jake Matthews at tackle. He got a pretty nice check last season. So Atlanta's legit. There's, I mean, you have the defensive additions, and that's the thing that because we talk about. I'm not sure what these other teams did. Atlanta, they got Bates, Campbell,
Okuda.
Bijan Robinson, and Okuda. So defensively, they have 3 starters through free agency. Like those guys, maybe they won't start. Maybe they have a different rotation, but you have 3 starting caliber players. Granted, Bates is definitely going to start.
Yeah, I was gonna say Bates was probably top 2 or 3 at his position in the
Yeah.
league.
So you're going to get these guys are going to start. Bijan Robinson is going to get a lot of action. So those 4 major moves right there are 4 impact players out of 22 players you have on the field. The
Right.
Saints, we got Derek Carr, and he's dependent on maybe if Michael Thomas comes back, maybe if this one comes back, whatever the case may be. You said top rushing offense, and you just add Algier Patterson, and then Robinson. And Patterson he's a big power back. People don't think that he's that big, but he's like 6'3", 6'4", 220.
Right.
But he's a big back. You can run Bijan because he's in his early 20s. You can run him, give him 6 or 7 carries on a drive, and then change it up with Patterson coming through.
Yeah, and Algier was a rookie last year.
And Algier was a rookie. He's also a big body. I think he's running around 220, 230, something like that, out of BYU. The only thing that is worrying me is 3rd and 11. Do you have a vertical passing threat scheme? You have the players, Drake London. You say you got Scotty Miller in the slot, Kyle Pitts. I'm wary. I want him to produce more, and I know that he's getting doubled a lot, or he's getting the other team's best corner because there's no other vertical threat. So if the passing threat becomes relevant, then I think they got a real shot of just being able to get those drives going, because you're going to get 3rd and 11. You're going to get a holding call, and then whatever the case would be. Occasionally, you got to convert those 3rd and 11s, but you can't keep running that same action that got Kyle Pitts hurt and was getting Drake London rocked.
Well, I like the Matt Collins pickup as well. He did, especially he already has, he's proven himself to some degree. Like when Darren Waller went out last year for the Raiders, they had receiver injuries. The guy from Clemson, I'm drawing a blank on the name right now. When he was out, Matt Collins stepped in and became
Justin Ross or something like that.
No, not Ross. The white guy.
Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah, Renfrow. When Renfrow was hurt, Matt Collins stepped in, caught a touchdown in like 3 straight games. So like I like that pickup for Atlanta as well. And if I remember correctly, you'll have to help me with this one. I believe they still have that receiver that I can't pronounce his name. Zacchaeus is he still there?
I think he might have moved on.
Okay, he might have moved
to make room, because he was considered the speedster,
right?
But he didn't have to take the top off the defense speed. He had I can run a good route, and if I run this route appropriately, I'm gonna create space because he was so quick. But a lot of times it never materialized because, like I said, the vertical passing game was just almost, I won't say non-existent, but it definitely wasn't a primary offensive concept for Arthur Smith. So he's got to step up and make it happen.
And Carolina is interesting to me. I'm a big Bryce Young fan. Obviously, I think he's going to have a bright future, but the problem is that the future has to start somewhere. So he's probably going to take a while to get acclimated just based on size.
I don't like the trade. I don't like the trade they made.
The DJ Moore trade. I was going to bring that up. And then also, but I'm interested in them because, I was a big Chuba Hubbard fan when he was at Oklahoma State. I feel like Carolina hasn't necessarily deployed him enough, but they went and got Miles Sanders as well. So, I don't think either one of them are necessarily every down backs, but when their powers combine, they can make Captain Planet. Carolina went and got DJ Shark, to replace DJ Moore, I guess. But
they're both named DJ. That's about it.
So I'm interested to see, because I like Carolina's coach. They went and got Frank Reich. I'm a big Frank Reich guy. I think Indianapolis definitely pulled the plug too early on him. They just needed somebody to blame for their shortcomings. So as of this moment,
you remember when they hired Jeff Saturday? I just remembered that.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. I just think about that.
But we were in agreement that Derek Carr is the best quarterback in the division. I think that Frank Reich is the best coach in the division, which is still not necessarily saying much when you look at the other coaches in that division, because we talked about it before we started. Is Todd Bowles going to see week 6? Art Smith.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Jury's still out a little bit on him. Back-to-back 7 and 10 seasons, but jury's still out a little bit. And then, Dennis Allen, I thought, just from different things that I read, I don't like firing coaches necessarily after the first year unless you're Nathaniel Hackett. And I promise Aaron Rodgers I will keep your coach's name out my mouth besides that. But, but just from the standpoint of firing a coach the first year, I didn't think Allen should have got the job in the first place. If if things go awry for the Saints, especially after picking up Derek Carr, let's say they get off to a 2-5 start or something along those lines, then I could see him being on the chopping block as well. So I just see Atlanta as the team with the most advantages. And surprisingly enough, so Atlanta has a big question. What is Desmond Ridder? But outside of that, I feel like Atlanta has the least questions of all these teams. Like, we just have to figure out what Ridder is.
Yeah, and that's the thing. With a young quarterback and a good running game and a pass catching tight end, you have Ferguson, and just that the Arthur Smith passing game is built for a young quarterback. The problem is after 2, 3, 4, 5 games of film into the 2023 season, if it doesn't look different than the division opponents, because like I think a lot of the games, you get these division games, if you don't switch it up by the second game, you're gonna get destroyed. And that's what was happening. It's like that the action was always the same kind of like RPO. It was like a slant on the backside, and the free safety just started
and so I don't know, like, Art Smith, like, I know you mentioned that his playbook is meant for a young quarterback, but I feel like there's times where, how can I word this? Your players outgrow your scheme. Like, I think London and Pitts by themselves, just those two, are better than the scheme that he runs. So
100%.
And so I was going to bring up, these guys, because the Falcons also picked up Tyler Heineke. So this year, if Ridder doesn't necessarily show what the Falcons are looking for,
you're gonna keep playing them.
Maybe, you know what I mean?
They're gonna keep playing them.
Maybe, but you know what I mean? If you get to, say, week 14, say you're 7-6 or so, and somebody's right there
in the division,
right? But if the Saints or somebody are 7-6 or 6-7, you might have to weigh, depending on how he's looking in that moment. You may have to weigh: are we trying to make the playoffs this year, or should we fall back? You have to make that decision.
Yeah, but even as that concept, what that does is it puts you in a position where, like the Jets, you essentially bench your young guy last season because he couldn't get his footwork together, whatever the case may be. But then you bring in this older guy for a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do with this guy on the roster? What are you going to do with Zach Wilson? Is he just going to groom him to be this backup, but you never want the guy who's starting to get hurt? It's not like there's he got drafted like a Jordan Love situation where it's like, okay, Aaron Rodgers is on his way out and Zach Wilson. You want Aaron Rodgers to play as many good years as he can, because you feel like your window's going to close.
Right.
So if you try to move Ridder in the favor of Heineke, then what do you do? Granted, he's only a 3rd round pick, so he's probably not due a lot of money.
Well, I'm not saying trade him.
But what do you do? Like, if you're gonna keep him, then you let him ride it out. You let him go. If he's 7-6 and then he goes on a 4-game losing streak, then you can go on the next season and like, okay, he might not have it or whatever the case may be.
And you still might win the division.
Theoretically, you still could win it.
Because Carolina almost won it last year.
It was a situation where I think a win
like
here, a win there,
alive.
Every team would have been like
7 or 8-9 or something.
7-9 week 17. It was something crazy like that.
All playing each other.
Yeah, and it would have been glorious. But I think
we needed that. Yeah, we needed that.
I think the Falcons messed it up by they had like a silly loss. I think it might have been the Washington loss, maybe a different loss, but it's like it kind of threw off that dream scenario of mediocrity.
Well, yeah, like Tampa, I just don't believe in at all. So I have them bringing up the rear, so to speak.
Yeah, man, that's it. This could be a 4-13 year for them.
Yeah, I have Carolina finishing slightly better than them, and like I said, it's mostly because of the coach. You know, I like Carolina's defense. You know, some of the play. I mean, Carolina, granted, you know, DJ Moore's gone, all that stuff. They started off 1-4 last year. They brought in Steve Wilkes and went 6-6. So I figure if Steve Wilkes, no disrespect, can go 6-6, Frank Wright could go 6-6 over a stretch. You know, and you know, it's all gonna depend, of course, on the rookie quarterback and how quickly he can acclimate to the game.
Yeah, what the thing that I think every team has and that Atlanta doesn't have, and that gives them a leg up. I think every team has a potential volatile situation just already in place. I think Tampa Bay, with the infusion of Baker Mayfield, Todd Bowles looking like he might not be the best man for the job, at least under the relation we had with Tom Brady last year, just looked like you might not have it. You know, for like the last couple of seasons, like it might not be the move for you to be the head coach under Tom Brady. So maybe it's different if he can get a little bit more control. Because they said Tom Brady was having like separate meetings with the offense
Right.
or redrafting the game plan. And I think he was kind of presenting it to Byron Leftwich, but not. He wasn't. It wasn't like a cooperative thing. It was like, hey, cool, thanks for these 10 plays, but I'm gonna run these 15. So then you have the wide receivers that need their numbers, and Baker Mayfield over the last few years hasn't really been able to get the ball deep and the big plays to his wide receivers.
Well, he looked good with McVay, but Tampa doesn't have a McVay.
Yeah, but even with that, did he? How many big plays? He had that one drive, the 98-yard drive that was aided by a penalty, a couple of penalties by the Raiders, but that was it. Like, I mean, if you think about, let me give you a name. Like, you know, granted, this is Joe Burrow, but in that playoff game against Kansas City, 4th and 6, he throws that bomb to Jamar Chase. You know, in the Super Bowl against the Rams, he had that big deep play to T. Higgins. Granted, T. Higgins grabbed Jalen Ramsey's face mask, but he had those plays.
Yeah.
If you think about Baker Mayfield, when's the last like big throw you've seen him make? I know he has the record for the longest incomplete pass thrown in the game. It was like 70 yards in the air when at the back of the end zone.
Well, just for the record, you know, of course, they made Byron Leftwich the scapegoat and got him out of town. So, you know,
he was in position to get a head coaching job the season before, but then you fire him. Once again, it's like I think players remember things like that. Same thing with Carolina. Those players wanted Steve Wilkes to get the job.
They did.
Granted, I know it's a lot of turnover, but if Frank Wright starts out 1-4, 1-5, they're like, yeah, we could have done this with Steve.
Well, you made a comment when we were pre-meeting, and you said we were talking about the Houston Texans offensive coordinator, and you said, look at these dudes getting the same jobs that Eric Bieniemy is getting, right? So, real quick, Dave Canellis, this is Tampa Bay's offensive coordinator. So, he was born the same year as us. So, in 2004, he was an offensive coordinator at a high school, you know, for 2 seasons. Then he went to El Camino College for 2 years as a special team / tight end coach. You know, went to USC for a year, assistant strength coach. Was with the Seahawks from 2010 to 2017 as a wide receivers coach. Quarterback coach for 2018 and 19. Passing game coordinator 2020 and 2021. Last year, he was the Seahawks quarterbacks coach. So I guess he's getting the credit for Geno Smith's resurgence. And
now
then
he's the offensive coordinator.
Now he's the offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay, getting Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask, or John Wolford.
That just sounds like a terrible quarterback.
That just sounds like Todd Bowles is probably out of there week 6, week 7.
It's like you didn't give him the support. Like, oh my goodness, this dude got hit so hard. Oh, he got up. That ball went straight out of bounds.
See, the Browns took the lead, and I couldn't even tell you when or how it happened. I ain't even been paying no attention.
I saw it. It was a nice play. It was a nice slant route from DTR to number 8. I can't remember what his name was.
Is it Donovan Peoples-Jones? Is that my
No,
guy? No.
he's not. Yeah, he's not out there.
Okay, but anyway, go ahead. But yeah, he's in trouble. Like Todd Bowles is in trouble. Frank
Let's
Reich.
just go. We'll do our hot seat. We'll do our when we do our preview, because every year me and Mike do a hot seat conversation with coaches, and we've been pretty accurate. I mean, we put Mike McCarthy on it 2 years in a row just because he coaches in Dallas.
Right.
Like I would have if Jimmy Johnson came back. If Jimmy Johnson came back and was coaching the Cowboys next season, we put him on a hot seat. Yeah, just
after week 3, you know, saying they'd be 2-1, and he's still on
2-1. Yeah, they could lose their game 41 to 40, and they were like, "Oh, can Jimmy really win?"
Yeah,
like, can they get a stop?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll do the hot seat preview, but like Todd Bowles is coming to the season on a hot seat. I don't want to say rightfully so, but it's like at some point, someone's gonna have to go.
Well, we've seen him as a head coach fail before, so you know it's not as if
he went to the Jets. These coaches, listen, man. Like I get it, you want your opportunity, but just like we talked about leverage with these running backs, man, just hold out. Just hold out for the other job. Don't just take the job to where you have no leverage.
Sometimes as a black coach, that second job might not be there.
But don't take the first one if it's the Jets.
You know, like, because look what happened with Byron Leftwich, right? You just said it. Like, you know, he was going to be Jacksonville's coach, but then he came in there with some demands.
He wanted to get the GM fired. Like, come on. I mean, I get it. You want to get rid of somebody, but like, you can't just be like,
he'll get fired in due time.
I want the dude interviewing me fired. Like,
yeah, and then all he did was
say like, I want some control with the coaches I hired.
And then all he did was go get Calvin Ridley, right?
Yeah, but Calvin Ridley was on the block because, you know, I think he bet on himself, literally. But it's a lot of teams that are going to be bad teams going into 24-25 season. There's going to be some teams that lose a lot of games. And I just think that, especially if it's a team like who has like a strong ownership group, like say hypothetically the Cowboys. Say the Cowboys have a bad year, a 4-13 year, they fire some people. That ownership group, that GM, that top office, those head office guys, they're not going to give you the control you want. You know, maybe Arizona might give you the opportunity to, you know, draft your players you want or hire the coaches you want, but like the Rams aren't. The Rams are going to be like, no, you're going to take who we give you. Seattle, they're never going to get rid of Pete Carroll. Pittsburgh's like, listen, Pittsburgh might give you a little bit more leeway because I think Mike Tomlin's earned that. But coming in, you're not going to get that kind of, you're not going to get that kind of cachet. So it's like, I would rather go to a team that has like a winning culture. That way, if I do have a bad season, which is likely when you're a rookie head coach, you're probably going to have a rookie quarterback at some point. You might have a bad season. I need some leeway, but Todd Bowles, he got that off.
I'm waiting to see who New England is going to hire once Belichick's gone.
Bill O'Brien.
Maybe.
Coach in waiting.
Maybe.
That's why he came back from Alabama.
We'll see.
But yeah. So, I mean, like I said, we talked about the Bucs. Like I said, it's potential for them to be 4-13 just because I think I don't know if they have anything to like really rally around. I don't think like Atlanta has optimism.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they can build on. Arthur Smith has been there 2 years, 14-20. They had the lead in the division later in the season than they had in like since the Super Bowl era, like the 2016, 2017, 2018.
How about that call on Grady Jarrett?
That changes so much. It's like 3 or 4 different plays that I remember. The Marcus Mariota fumbling snap week 1 against New Orleans, and then it still being 4th and 1, and then not calling the timeout and kind of figuring out, can we get this yard? The Grady Jarrett call.
The dumbass pass against Washington.
The dumb pass against Washington. It was a couple other plays that they're 10-7. Those 3 plays, Atlanta's potentially 10-7.
Mm-hmm.
So they have that optimism. Carolina has optimism because they have this young quarterback, but he is small. Like I
Right.
don't care what the numbers say. That dude is not 6 foot 205. It's just like I know offensive linemen are huge. I stormed the field once in Utah, and I stand behind Zane Beatles. He's probably one of the biggest people I've ever stood next to in my entire life.
I'm not convinced Bryce Young weighs more than me.
I'm legitimately not convinced he's more than 5'10", 188, 190. He's
And that's
definitely
I
not
still
six
think the
foot.
190 is generous. You know what I mean?
It's the same thing with Kyler Murray. I do not believe Kyler Murray is taller than 5'9".
Mhm.
You can just look at like he looks smaller than Scotty Miller. Uh, so I think that's huge. Granted, like you get hit, big dudes get hit and get hurt too, because like Carson Wentz is 6'5", 240. He gets hurt. Josh Allen 6'4". Justin Herbert, his ribs get cracked. People get hurt. People get hit.
Right.
It's
Right.
just that is he gonna be able to process the game and get rid of the ball quick enough so he doesn't take an unnecessary hit? Is he
Right.
going to be able to
Right.
get down when the sack comes? Is he going to be able to get out of the pocket? Is he going to be able to save himself? Frank Wright, I think, being moved out of Indianapolis, maybe that gives him a fire. Maybe that's something they can galvanize around. But like I said, the team wanted Steve Wilkes. So
Right.
that's not a rallying cry. And they got, they brought in Adam Thielen and Miles Sanders.
They
I
bought in
believe they made
Hayden
some moves
Hurst.
there.
Yeah.
I like Hayden Hurst a lot, but I think Hayden Hurst sees himself more of, I think he sees himself when he looks in the mirror, he sees Travis Kelsey more and he doesn't get that kind of, I think he has that size, speed. I think he has that, but he doesn't get used that way.
Hmm.
And with the young quarterback, he probably should get more targets, but it might be some situation where they're just running the ball more
Hmm.
or hitting Thielen out of the slot, something like along those
Right.
lines. Just
Well,
kind of
yeah,
getting him
like
quicker.
Thielen could kind of play that Wes Welker role.
Yeah. So I
Y-
think they should have some optimism in Carolina just simply because I think they have a good team. Their
But not
defense is
this
stout.
year.
Not a lot of wins, but I don't think they're going to be a bad. They won't look like the Bears, how the Bears looked last year, like a
Right.
bad looking team. I think they'll just lose some games.
Right.
New Orleans, I think they're going to implode because they have talent on defense. They have enough talent on defense to be winning games, and I'm not sure the offense is going to be able to match. I think it's going to be situations where Cameron Jordan's walking onto the field and Derek Carr just threw a pick, and it's going to be like, I guess we got to fucking bail you out again. That kind of thing. Week
Right.
8 when you're 3-4, and Atlanta is 6-1. After whatever, and you're losing. You're like, granted, I'm reaching with the 6-1, but like you can just tell that the other teams in your division are going the other way,
Right.
and you're out here playing your heart out to try to save the offense because I mean maybe Chris Olave can be that guy, but if he's the only guy, then you double him. If Michael Thomas doesn't come back, then you just double Chris Olave. Yeah, you brought Jimmy Graham in, but how many guys have sat on their couch for longer than a year and come back and been productive NFL offensive weapons? I don't think that
Yeah.
happens a lot. You saw with Deshaun Watson, didn't happen.
Yeah.
It's not a thing that just happens in this sport.
Yeah. So I ended up with Atlanta 10-7, New Orleans 8-9, Carolina 6-11, and Tampa 5-12.
5 is generous. I got him 4-13. Atlanta, man, I got him at like 15-2. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Calm down, people. For y'all get all on my X account
You
clapping
know,
at me.
but yeah, but whoever wins the NFC South, it's going to be hard for me to see them win a playoff game, unless, Atlanta really is just controlling the clock. That's going to be the only way to victory.
I mean, they got a 3-headed monster running back, and people don't forget like Desmond Ritter ran like a 4.5, 4.5, 4.6 40, something like that. Like he's just as fast as Marcus Mariota.
Yeah.
He was the fastest quarterback in his draft class.
I just hope for the Falcons' sake that Art is creative enough to run with that, so to speak.
Just give me 4 wide every once in a while. Just give it to me. Give me 4 wide with Kyle Pitts in the slot and try to get them matched up on a linebacker.
I
If
don't
if they got a safety on them on one side, shift and try to just get him on a linebacker or get him in the flat, get the ball in his hand. Start the game off by getting the ball because you can hand the ball off. You
I
can
don't
hand the ball off all
understand.
day long. You can get 20 touches to your running backs all game long. I want to start out first drive, get the ball to Pitts in the flat, even if it's a 1 yard, one reception for 7 yards. Get him the ball, and then when he gets back up, get it to Drake London on the other side. Get the ball into the hands of these playmakers. Turn their talent into playmaking talent, and that way, now you can't just have 8 guys in the box because you saw 4 games that Ritter was in last year. He threw 2 touchdown passes and no interceptions, and he completed like 64% of his passes.
And
But it was like for like 830 yards.
and then I forgot to mention the Saints did pick up, NFL touchdown leader Jamal Williams, rushing touchdown leader Jamal Williams, and they did
I
pick up
like him.
Kendra Miller from TCU. So, they have a bit of a running monster as well. You know what I mean? So maybe the play action will be their call.
But
They're
but
calling.
but our Atlanta ran the ball a lot because Marcus Mariota is not a 35 pass attempt a game guy.
Right.
Derek Carr could be.
Could be.
So
yes.
do you send how to? I love watching like the mic'd up quarterbacks and they run up, or when they do an interview and they run off the play and it's like scat back, slot right, Z, Yankee, kill, blah 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 blah, kill, blah blah blah. Like they send in the 3 plays and there's 2 pass plays of the run play. Does he check to the run play or does he check to the pass play on 3rd and 4?
Well, the one hope for the Saints, because you were talking about optimism and everything. So the one hope for the Saints is, we talked about this the other day. For some reason, they had a lot of hype going into last season. A lot of people thought of them as like a borderline Super Bowl contender. They were easily going to win the division. They were going to make some noise. So maybe, as a Saints fan, maybe your hope is we were just a year off.
They are, and that's the thing about the Saints. They are Falcon Kryptonite. I'm not even going to front. I got
House
a couple
of Horrors,
Saints fans.
you know it. So before anybody says it, before you hear Rob Parker, before you hear any of these people say it, on August 3rd, 2023, you heard 2-5 refer to the fact that when the Falcons go to the Superdome, the New Orleans Superdome, I don't even know what it's called now because they both Mercedes-Benz.
They both Mercedes-Benz, but I think Mercedes-Benz guy out of New Orleans business went to Atlanta, and like I think that it might be something else now.
Well, I'm talking about
Smoothie King Superdome.
I'm talking about the dome in New Orleans. When the Falcons
Dome,
go there, it is known as the House of Horrors.
Yo, ever since that first game after Katrina, where what's the guy that had ALS? I apologize for forgetting his name. But when he came through and blocked that punt and they returned it for a touchdown, that first game
they got the statue.
Yo, it was like from that point on, I just was like, I hate watching the games when Atlanta's in New Orleans because I know it has happened. It hasn't been like 6, 7, 8 years I haven't won in New Orleans.
Right.
It's never an easy win.
Uh-huh.
Either it's a nail biter. I think one game Deion Jones intercepted Drew Brees in the end zone, but it was like if that's a completed pass, Atlanta loses. It's like every single time the games are in New Orleans, it's never like Atlanta's up 15 with 6 seconds to go.
And like dear NFL
on the ball. Never happens.
Dear NFL, whenever Atlanta goes to the House of Horrors, can I get that? Can I get that on Monday night or Sunday night?
We good. I'll watch it on his iPad. I'll watch it on his phone or his laptop.
Some things just have to happen.
I don't need this in prime time because I want to chill in prime time. I can't chill. Like, listen, I'm not a crazy fanatic fan, but oh my goodness. The 2020 season? The season where they just kept losing in miraculous ways.
Oh, that onside kick against Dallas.
The onside kick against Dallas. How else did they lose?
Oh man.
The onside kick against Dallas.
Awful.
The Chicago game when Nick Foles came back.
Uh-huh.
the Detroit game, every time it was like I was never alone.
Was that the game Gurley was supposed to
Wasn't supposed to score.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan said in the huddle, "We're gonna run blah 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 gut 30 whatever. Don't score." And he just ran all hard. It's like, yo, just lay down. Young Wei Koo can kick it from the 4. Like just it literally he said blah 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 blah. Don't score. Gave him the ball and he scored, and then we lost that game. I was at a club, like a brunch thing for that. So I'm in this packed place. I'm wearing my jersey. I'm looking at the TV, and I just like took the jersey off and threw it on the floor. I just was sitting there in a t-shirt, just like not even like a good looking t-shirt, just like a t-shirt that you just would wear under a jersey. I just was sitting there, just like people drinking, having a good time, smoking hookah.
Did you reenact losing a playoff series to Boston that day?
Man, cut it out. Cut it out. Cut it out. Get out of here.
Speaking of the NBA, there was a memo going around the league telling these teams that, hey, Damian Lillard will play for you if you trade for him. And, Mr. Logical is all player movement and all this kind of stuff. So I assume, I don't want to make an ass out of myself, but I assume Mr. Logical don't like that memo.
I don't like what Dame is doing simply because he has been on this hill of I want to stay here, win in Portland. I don't like when guys team up. Guys don't want to compete. Like, I mean, your Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, MySpace accounts. I mean, they don't forget. If you don't go in there and delete it, it's there. Someone has it.
And even then, somebody screenshotted it.
Somebody screenshotted it as soon as that happened. That's Ja Morant. So my thing with Dame is like, I get that you want to go to Miami. But like I said, as a criminal justice major, this is something I always tell people. I'm like, listen, don't try to plead your case in a court of public opinion. Don't try to plead it with the police. Don't try to plead it with the public. Shut up. Let the people who are paid to handle that, the people who are supposed to be your mouthpiece, let them handle that. So if you get a traffic ticket, or if you get pulled over, don't try to lobby and negotiate with the police. The police do not have leverage. Don't try to lobby with ESPN. Don't do interviews on podcasts talking about how you want to be here or how you feel about whatever, because that won't get you to where you want to go. The team is going to send you wherever the best deal is. Your agent can say until he's blue in the face, Dame's not going to go to Milwaukee, or Dame's not going to go to Dallas, or Dame's not going to Houston. That's cool. Put a no trade clause in your contract and you can have the leverage. But until then, you have no leverage. Like I said, this is going to be like a kind of a running conversation we have. If you have leverage, i.e. Bradley Beal, he had a no trade clause. He went to Phoenix. He probably could have gone to a better team, but he had a no trade clause. We went to Phoenix to get the best deal they could out of Phoenix because that was the barrel that he had watching over. Portland, Dame, you don't have that. And saying, we all know you want to go to Miami. So why keep saying it? Like, why say it publicly? Why put out this memo? We already know, we've known for a month that you want to go to Miami. If you were smart, you would have mentioned it before the draft, and that would allow the team to actually make moves to get you to Miami, because they would have had different assets. Portland could have been like, yo, let me get this first round pick this year, yada, 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 yada. And then they could have made some magic happen. But you wait till after the draft as if you didn't know they were going to take Scoot Henderson. We all knew that. So that's my thing, is like, if you felt this way about leaving, that happened at the end of the season. That happened after you dropped 71 points and you needed all 71 of them to win. You know what I mean? So it's like you already knew what you had on the team. You already knew who wasn't going to be able to come back. You already know who they weren't going to re-sign. So it was like, you knew this already. You should have been better prepared for it. But
Dame Lillard is the reason that Dame Lillard is not in Miami right now. As a wise man once said, Vince McMahon didn't screw Bret Hart. Bret screwed Bret. So from the standpoint of, shut up. You didn't even have to say it. Like you so okay, right? So the era that we live in, we're always going to get news, right? So these things happen behind closed doors allegedly, and then somebody is close to the situation because like Woj is basically like, you know, Woj and Shams are at like they're at like odds right now. One is like the Blazer guy, one's the Dame guy, you know. So like
Yeah.
they're at opposite ends of the spectrum trying to get this story out here. So Dame, it's one thing, right? I want to see what the Blazers are going to do, and then depending on what they do, I might ask for a trade. Period. What we didn't need was I'm going to Miami. Bienvenidos a Miami. You know what I'm saying? We didn't need that on Instagram. Because now you're telling Portland, because at the time, I think at the time that video came out, that I don't think he had formally asked for a trade yet.
And I think that was after the draft.
And it was after the draft. So this is the thing, right? When Portland traded and CJ McCollum was gone, you already knew what it was. Because what did you get back? You've been on this team.
They got Josh Hart. And that's
Eric Bledsoe, maybe?
I don't think so.
But the point being.
And they traded him.
But the point being, during warm-ups. But the point being is that you saw that and you didn't look at that team and say, yo, I got what I need. Now, this is my problem with NBA players at large. NBA players, from my estimation, outside looking in, probably have some of the biggest egos of any sports, any professional league. You have to be one of one. I am the best. I'm the man. So if you're somebody like, say, Damian Lillard, you should feel like you could go to any team in the NBA and make them better. Like, I know you used to make the comment about like, yo, put LeBron on Sacramento. They're in the conference finals. I'm not saying Dame is on that level, but I'm just saying that like within reason, like if Dame were to go to, say, Brooklyn, who was another team rumored that he might have been interested in. Put
Brooklyn
him next
would
to
probably
Mikal
be
Bridges.
a better landing spot for him than Miami.
Exactly.
You got to get out of your own way, and that's why you have to let the people. Like I tell people all the time, like, listen, when I wanted to see a therapist, I went to a therapist. I didn't go to my buddy. I didn't vent on social media. I went to a professional. Like, let me talk to a professional about this. When I want to get my hair cut, I don't go to my friend who cuts hair. I go to a barber who cuts hair. Like, I go to people who do what they're supposed to do. If he would just let his agent do the dealing, he probably could have got.
Go to Philly.
I think Brooklyn would be better because you have to recognize, if you look at the last few teams that won championships, they had young depth with older experienced players. Kuminga, Poole, Moody, with
Wiggins.
Clay, Wiggins, Steph, Draymond. Like, there's other pieces in there. You had Kevon Looney doing his thing, but like what you had was a young guy that can operate. I'm watching this play. Oh,
yeah, what do you know?
Interception.
What do you know? Even the Jets' third stringers throw the game-sealing interception. Wouldn't you know? I could have told you that without 15. Even. I could have told you that without even watching this game. But anyway,
yeah. So, but if, like I said, we talked about this before. The media has made the ring chase while you're in the league. They made that the priority. I saw something the other day on First Things First, and Eric Mangini was talking about Josh Allen, and he said something about everything we're doing is to prepare us for the Super Bowl. And Mangini was like, listen, you need to be prepared for week one. You can't get to the Super Bowl if you're not even prepared for week one. You can think about it, and I get the lofty goal, but he was like, you have to be prepared for week one. And I saw another podcast today it was like Gilbert Arenas, Rashad McCants. Like, I don't know what the name of the podcast is, but they're always arguing. It's always like, Gilbert's always getting on Rashad, and it was they had a female co-host, and she asked Gilbert Arenas, she was like, "Listen, you made $170 million in your career." She was like, "Would you take $120 million made in your career and have one ring?" He was like, "Hold on, so let me get this straight." He's like, "So I made 170 million. You're asking me would I trade? Would I go down 120 million for my career earnings and have a ring?" And he was like, "Hell no." He was like, "I'm not." He's like, "I can buy one of these rings right now off of eBay from guys who are on the team who need money." He's like, "I have $50 million extra, or I have this ring." No, he's like, "Not at all." And Sean McCann was like, "Nah." He's like, "I made 54. I'd rather have the ring." And I think that's the difference. Is like everybody in the media, not everybody. I want to try to not speak in absolutes, but the media has made the ring the validation piece for the NBA player, regardless of how they get it. There's no like, for lack of a better word, standard for how you get the ring.
Yeah, like
It's just
Gary
like you
Payton, for
just
example.
get chopped off at the knees for just not having one. Even Charles Barkley tried to join the team and get the ring,
Right.
but it's proof that's just not how it works. You need a lot more breaks. And you need a better format. It's not just a matter of like, oh, let me go to Miami, because Miami's not going to give up the assets you need to get a player like Dame, especially considering like the money Dame makes. Like, you're making $60 million. You are one of the quintessential best players in the league. Miami's gonna have to give up quality pieces to Portland. Portland's not gonna give up one
Yeah.
of the best players in the league just to take Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, and the guy that just took from UCLA back in the deal. Like, I'm not saying
Right.
those guys are bad players, but it's like it might work out for Portland, and maybe they have the
Well,
blinders
Portland's
on.
already guard heavy. That's the problem. They already got Shaden Sharp and Scoot Henderson and Anthony Simon. So,
Yeah,
they're
so
not.
it just wouldn't work. So it's like
Yeah.
Miami is probably not a good trade partner. It's
You
probably a
know,
dope city. I heard it's dope. I heard it's
unless
dope.
I love
But it's like,
Miami. Unless Miami is willing to come off of Hawkins and the other, Nicola.
if I'm not getting Bam out of Bayou and this Damian Lillard trade, I'm not making it happen if I'm Portland. If I'm not getting Bam, then I'm not making this deal.
Well,
Like,
then
that's
I
all you have to offer me as if I'm Portland, as I sit in Portland, I have Scoot Henderson, who's the quintessential replacement for Dame. 6 foot, 6'1", athletic. He's not the scorer Dame is, but he can play that role 25 feet from the hoop, coming downhill. Like, he can be that guy. I need a guy like Bam to be at the rim when Scoot comes downhill. I know Miami will love to have Bam and Dame and Jimmy Butler, but it's like none of you have the leverage to make that happen unless Miami is like, we'll send Jimmy Butler, which they're not going to do because he's the heart and soul of the team. So Miami's just not a good trade
well,
partner
see, that's
with
my
Portland
problem.
Unless Portland's willing to take way more concessions than any other team would. And I'm like, why would I?
Well, that's my problem with the memo. Like Dame is doing nothing different than most star players have done for who knows how long. Like, and granted, Dame isn't even the one that's putting this information out there and saying that he won't do these things. This is just coming from his agent. But obviously he's not speaking up about it, so he co-signs it in one way or another. But just from the standpoint of just last summer, we had Kevin Durant go to England and basically be like, I want Steve Nash gone or I'm gone. And then Brooklyn was like, no, we're going to keep you, bro. And we're going to keep him. So I was like, hard line. I love it. And then Steve Nash made it, what, like 20 games of that?
I
And
don't think he
then,
made. I think he made it 20 calendar days.
yeah. And then they ended up trading Durant anyway, at the trade deadline. So like, why does the NBA want to have this stance now? Because, like, for me, like, the NBA can't have their cake and eat it too. Like, the thing that made the NBA so popular in the last 10 to 15 years is the off season, the drama, the dramatics of. That's why this year's free agency, a lot of people are like, where did it go? Because
Oh,
there
that's
was
what they have the drama. We're talking about it right now. They have
Yeah.
what they have what they normally
But the problem is that it's usually Kevin Durant, or it's usually where's LeBron going to go, or it's this. We're talking about Dame Lillard. That's
Yeah,
the
but Dame
difference.
Dame Dame Lillard's a name, and what we're talking about, it's 2 years in a row of NBA teams basically defying the quintessential post LeBron player movement era concepts. But
And now what we gonna do
like
with Harden?
look at James Harden. James Harden's in the same boat, and I think what's
But the
really
difference
happened
is
is like
that Harden's not out here, or his agent
these
isn't out here
guys
saying
got
these things.
old. They don't. I like you said they have egos.
Yeah.
I don't think these guys recognize it's the same thing with the NFL and Tom Brady. Like we talk about these parallels between Tom and LeBron all the time as these modern anomalies that because people tend to either I won't say not like them personally or professionally, but there's a lot of guys that have been compared to or been put in these realms. What LeBron and what Tom Brady did in their leagues is head and shoulders above what anybody else does. I'm not saying these other guys didn't have. Steph has a great run in the league and has signed 4 championships in 8 seasons. A great run. Impact to LeBron is close. It's probably the closest of anybody else. But even then, it's still like not as close as people want to make it seem. So I think a lot of these guys were in like thrusting into that conversation. I think Kawhi was, James Harden,
Giannis.
KD. I don't think Giannis cares because Giannis is like, I'm just going to do me because Giannis
No,
doesn't
I
make
know,
any.
but people tried to
But
put
I'm
him
talking about
there.
the guys. I'm talking about the guys who are trying to use their leverage.
Mm-hmm.
They because at some point in the last 8 years, got to keep in mind, KD won the MVP in 2014.
Right.
It's 2023, August 2023. That's about to be 9.5, 10 years from the time he hoisted that trophy. But these guys still operate like, oh, I still have that 2014 leverage, that 2015 leverage, that 2016 leverage. I'm like, no, one guy is able to play at the level that he's playing at 36, 37, 38, and that's LeBron. The rest of you guys aren't. The rest of you guys had a steep decline. LeBron averaged 30 points before this past season. He averaged 30 points. And then Embiid had to play his heart out in the last couple of games to win the scoring title. But LeBron was averaging 30 points at 36, 37 years old. And then came back in their Western Conference Finals. The reason Kevin Durant didn't get his way with Brooklyn is because, you aren't doing what that guy did. You're not doing what Steph does. You're not doing what Luca can currently do. And that's the thing. I think that's the piece because Dame is like 20 before he signed this $200 million extension that has him getting paid $60 million. He could have moved then, and the next team would have given him. He would have gotten. I think your team can give you like the bigger deal, and the other team can give you 3 years. So he probably could have gotten 3 years, 150 million extension, like in a sign and trade at 27, and he could have gone any team he wanted to go to that they thought that could fit him in with the money, whatever the
Right.
case may be.
Right.
But instead, he stayed in Portland because that's what he was thinking. Hey, 2019, I'm gonna stay in Portland. We're gonna win here, and then it gets to the point of like, oh, I can't win here because there's not enough around me and it's not sustainable. But now you're already, now you're 11 years deep into that team, and you can't move. Durant was the same way. Like, yo, dog, you're 34, coming off multiple injuries where you couldn't play full seasons. You don't have the same leverage that you did after you won the MVP and when you went to Golden State. That was your only time.
Right.
That was your leverage window, and you kind of cut it short by going to Brooklyn. But I mean, the injury cut it short. But then you go to Brooklyn, and then you don't really come back, and like you don't get to an NBA Finals. You make the team gut themselves to get James Harden. So a lot of these guys have made all these moves, and it's like it hasn't worked out for any team. So that's the leverage piece. Kawhi got Paul George because up until that point, that had worked.
Yeah, he was just coming off the title, so he was the toast of the town. He came in calling shots because he could. You know what I
Came
mean?
off the title.
Not realizing That Toronto team was really good. Now, granted, he put them over the top, but you know what I mean. Like Siakam broke out. You know,
They were
Fred. They
consistently
were.
one or two in the East, even when LeBron was in Cleveland.
Yeah, they just needed something better than DeRozan. You know, just like I always say about the Warriors, they just needed something better than Harrison Barnes. They didn't even necessarily need Durant. They just needed somebody that could knock down a consistent shot when left wide
Somebody
open.
that could shoot 38, 39% from three
Yeah. So
in the
from that,
playoffs.
yeah, they needed Wiggins. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, that's where the leverage comes in, and that's where the movement comes in. But when you're looking at somebody like Dame, I'm like at best, right? If you go to Miami right now, remember, Miami was the 8th seed in this previous playoff run. So like getting Dame gets you up to 5, maybe. Well, I mean,
If
this year maybe it gets you to 4 or
if
3.
you if Portland takes if Portland takes a raw deal, then yeah, I think you go from 8 to probably 3, because I think Philly is going to take a step back. If they can't move Harden, I'm not
Right,
sure if he plays, and if he plays, I'm not sure if he plays well.
right.
Um,
Yeah, I saw him
and
slamming those
and we
4 cheeseburgers.
and you know how Embiid kind of is an emotional guy. And I think he plays on how he feels.
Yeah, he wears his heart on his sleeve.
Yeah, so I think that could be a situation where if James is out there and he feels like,
And
oh,
James ain't even go to the wedding.
they're losing games. Maybe they get invited. They're losing games to Orlando. They're losing, like, Houston comes in and beats them, or they lose a game to Detroit at home by a lot, like, like 112-98 or something like that.
Yeah,
And it's like after that game, I think a game like that, a blow up. You lose to Milwaukee, it is what it is.
right, right.
Milwaukee has one of the best players. You lose to Dallas when they come up with Kyrie and Luca. Okay,
Like
that
all of these,
happens.
so like back to the Gilbert Arenas thing for a second. Like I understand both sides of that. You know what I mean? I mean, at the end of the day, if somebody is going to pay you X amount of millions of dollars, who are you to tell them no? But also when you're somebody like Dame Lillard, who talks the talk, somebody like Kevin Durant who talks the talk, he just wants the ball. Like those rings, I would think matter. So, at this standpoint, like Dame's advantage in the ring argument is that he's a little dude. He's 6 foot, what, 3, 4, maybe at most.
I don't think he's any.
He, maybe 6'2".
He might be 6'2". I think he might
You
be listed as 6'2". So I think he's
so
probably
like
closer to six
throughout
foot.
NBA history, there's not a lot of those dudes that his size that get held to that standard. So
But if you're
so
the best player in a team, like I think the
well, I
size.
just mean from a
you-
criticism standpoint, like he's not going to
I
get the
think the
same
criticism is
criticism
because
that
I think
Kawhi
the
would get.
criticism he didn't get is because he didn't get the criticism is because he's never stacked his team,
Right,
and he's been playing since, we can basically call the Boston. We can go back to the Boston 3 party until now, where NBA teams have essentially been just kind of like puzzle piece together with as much talent as you can, with either through free agency or some kind of trade or buyouts and things like that, where you got guys like, you get James Harden, KD, and Kyrie on the team, and all of a sudden Blake wants to get out of Detroit, and
right.
he takes a buyout of,
LaMarcus Aldridge,
they
like
take a
yeah,
buyout, and then they come to Brooklyn for $4.5 million. So, like, that has been the standard wave. Portland wasn't getting those guys, so Portland was never considered to be a threat. They made it to the Western Conference Finals against Golden State, but they just didn't have the same kind of firepower, or like
right.
sustained firepower and experience that Golden State had. Because I think they had leads in the fourth quarter, like
Yeah, they
every
just lost
game.
him. Yeah,
They just lost them because it's just like
and he
they
didn't
didn't have
necessarily
enough.
play that well either.
Yeah, but like, we don't know if Portland as a team was going to be able to beat them anyway.
Right,
Golden
right,
State
right,
is one
right,
of those second half teams that just kind of just makes things happen.
right.
So that's why I think he's never got any heat, and I think people have always given him the same kind of respect that they give Giannis, as far as like, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to sign my extension here. I'm
Mhm.
not going to go join another big team. The difference is that Milwaukee also got Brooke Lopez, got Drew Holiday, had Chris Middleton, had, Pat Connaughton. They
You got
had
Bobby
other
Portis.
Bobby
Yeah.
Portis. They had these scrappy guys that filled in around Giannis. Name me the guy that Portland has gotten, because you get keep in mind, Milwaukee, it can't be a better destination than Portland.
Can't be.
Because I know Milwaukee it's not a very safe
It's
city.
bootleg Chicago.
It's known, it has this nefarious activity, so it's not like it's a poppin' city that's this burgeoning society. It's the middle of nowhere. Whereas Portland
On the
has
coast.
is on the coast. It's a very nice city. The people are
You
very
get to
nice.
LA real quick.
It's a very clean city.
Weather's always nice,
But
temperature wise.
but they don't have those moves. They don't have those free agent moves and those signings and those draft picks that you can build around. Yeah, even if Dame isn't your big physical player, go get a Portis. Go get one of the Morris twins or something. Go get some of these guys that these other teams seem to always be able to get their hands on. Jeff Green, these other players that you can get when Wiseman was on the block for Golden State. That could have been a move they could have made. Because I'm pretty sure you have a young guard on your bench that you don't play. Wiseman wasn't getting that much money. You can make that move, but that's the thing. What they do, they just fire coaches, rehire coaches, fire coaches.
Well,
Come
that's
up with
why,
a new scheme.
I was confused because Paul George was allegedly on the trade block during the draft. Why not go get Paul George?
Because Paul George, like I said, it's not 2014 no more. Like Steph Curry said to CP3, it's not 2014 no more. and that's the thing. And I think the NBA,
it's still something. But it's better than anything they got right now.
But keep in mind, these guys are getting $40 million.
It's better than anything they got right now.
Am I going to give a 33-year-old dude who keeps getting knee injuries and shoulder injuries $40 million to come in?
No, but you bring him in.
Other guy that's making $60 million.
No, you bring him in. You bring him in this year. You bring him in this year, and it's an expiring contract, and now you got money to go play with.
I got $90 million I got to spend this year. I ain't worried about the expiration of the contract because my season's going to expire because this guy's unreliable.
But it's a constant build. You're not going to get anybody to come to Portland right now in this moment
So why do I want
right now?
So why do I want a guy that's already over 30?
Why do I make you a championship contender?
Why do I want two guys over 30 that won't be there by the time my team is potentially contending for $100 million?
Because now you got the money.
Dame's
you get somebody
Dame
this
has
year.
3 more years on his deal.
You get somebody this year. Paul George's contract expires next year. You got somebody else to bring in.
Okay, so what good does that do me when I keep my guy who's already over 30 for another year? Like I'm not.
Dame is
Dame
ain't 37. Like that what you're saying makes sense if he's Chris Paul's age. He's not.
But that's the thing. What am I? My rebuild is at least 2 to 3 years. Because at some point, if Chauncey Billups isn't the guy, he's got to go.
Right.
Because your rebuild has to have new stuff.
Right.
So you got to get rid of Chauncey. And you bring in another coach for Dame?
But that's the thing. We don't know. How do you know if Chauncey's the guy or not? You're just supposed to go win with Dame and nobody else? And that's what proves that you're the guy?
That's what I'm saying. They're gonna take a raw deal, but you're gonna have to fully commit. The way the Mets are fully committed right now. The Mets are it sucks. And I know it's like it comes off as like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. But you're going to have to call the baby ugly. You can't halfway do it. It's like when I want to get my beard, like my beard grows, I'm like, I don't like it. I don't just keep trimming it. I just take it all the way down. And I go through my skin routine. I let it grow out for like a good month. And then it's like, okay, boom, this feels better. But like if I'm not in my routine, if I miss it for a couple of weeks or my barber doesn't cut it right, and it's like, you know what, just start me over. Just like, don't keep cleaning me up. And I got the chin strap like I'm DMX.
In the first place.
Like I got the chin strap like I'm DMX. Like, now let me go ahead and start this whole thing over and really build on it and try to do it right. That's why
they should have never signed him in the first place.
Well, at 27, I don't like. he wanted to be there. I'm not saying
I know, but you also have to be
it just
self-aware. Like you knew
fades.
you weren't going to get anybody to put next to him.
But that they had the pieces. It's just some things just don't work out.
What
Like
pieces?
Nurk, they got Nurkic, they had LaMarcus Aldridge, they had Dame, they had CJ McCollum. They
Aldridge
made
was
it to
long gone
listen.
before then. He was in San
He was
Antonio with Kawhi. The
okay,
year that
but
Kawhi hurt his ankle, he was
but
gone.
but but
Nurkic
they but
ain't good,
they made it to the Western Conference Finals. So they made
but you and I both talked about this. There was a lot of
yes, and
injury and all
a
that stuff
lot of
involved.
injuries, but sometimes you need that break. But after the Western Conference Finals, that's when they should have been like, all right, let's make the Paul George kind of move.
Right.
Let's get the move where we're paying CJ, Dame, and this other guy $35 million each. That's when you make that move. When your stars are in their 20s. You gotta keep in mind these guys, you have to be 19 to get drafted in the NBA.
Shit, they should have went
So
after Anthony
drafted
Davis.
yeah, but he wasn't gonna go. They just drafted 60 players in the NBA draft a couple of months ago. 60 players. All those dudes are between the ages of 19 and 22 for the most part. You can't have two players on your team that are 31 and 32, 33, getting paid $90 million when the San Antonio Spurs are going to have a starting lineup that averages 21 years old. And
Yeah.
you expect these guys who are like coming off of injuries or injury prone to keep up. It's like you have to. I'm not saying it's not an ageism thing, and I get it, but everybody isn't built like Steph. Everybody's not built like LeBron. Everybody's not built the way Jordan was able to play for all those years. Stockton playing for all those years. Malone playing for all those years. You can even look at Kobe in his last few years. It was like he wasn't the same. He wasn't 2006, 2008, 2009 Kobe
Right.
in 2013, and it happens. Like these things happen. So he got a lot of deep money on the back end because I think he kind of gave up some in the middle. But once it goes, it goes. It's like Paul George can't defend Jalen Green.
Right.
He's not the wing defender. Kawhi's the wing defender that they are. So it's like you got to just be
Shit.
like, listen, call the baby ugly, move these guys. It's not a disrespectful thing. Just get them somewhere where you can get some good young pieces in and start a proper rebuild. You're gonna be on TV. It's the NBA. You're gonna get your minimal games because you are a mediocre team. You're in a mediocre market. So it's not like you're gonna miss out on something by
Right.
not having Dame on the team. Right now, you essentially have two spots that you can't use.
But I can't imagine. Well, I guess like at the end of the day, he's going to end up in Miami because it's just probably too late for anybody else to seriously get into the game.
I
You know what I
think
mean?
I think a savvy GM. I
Like
would
I
watch
mean,
out for Brooklyn.
yeah, I'm still. That's what I'm hopeful for. I'm hoping that Brooklyn steps up and, as I would like to say, do the right thing. I hope Brooklyn steps up and goes grabs him, put him next to McHale. You still got Claxton, so maybe you move Claxton because you still
Now
got Cam
I think you got to keep
because you still got Cam
him.
Johnson as well.
Cam. Well, I think they just signed him,
Yeah,
so
they
he
can't
can't
trade
move.
him. Yeah, you can't trade
So
him.
Brooklyn might be out of it then because I don't know what other pieces.
I
Portland or
mean, you're
Dame
not
will
going to
have
get a
to come
star
to.
back. You know what I
You're
mean?
not
That's
getting a star
yeah.
back.
You're not getting a star back.
The best you can hope for is
Is Nick
Houston.
Claxton?
Houston gives you three of their young guys. I don't know what the money looks like. I don't know what you have to do to get the money to look right. Where Houston just says, you know what, I got a veteran coach or
Nah,
a
Houston.
semi-veteran
All,
coach.
all Houston's dudes are on their rookie contract. Their big contracts are Van Vliet and Dylan Brooks. Everybody else, like those,
Can't
Shea
Denver doesn't
Good,
have a
Jalen
guy.
Green, Jabari, Eason, all them dudes are still on rookie contracts.
OKC doesn't have anyone making that kind of money.
They got Shy, but you ain't trading him.
You're not trading him.
Yeah.
Russ is. I think Russ is. He
He's only
re-signed a
making
deal with
$4
LA.
million. Yeah, like
Um,
Harden, I guess. Like,
I mean,
but you know what I
unless
mean.
you
But
go straight up, but you're just trading apples for apple juice at
right,
that
and
point.
then you gonna end up, but he's coming off the books next year. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't know.
But I
Like,
think Harden wants to get to get traded and sign an extension.
Right. And he's not going to do that with them.
Yeah, and he's
But
not
but
going to
but
go to
from what I was
Portland.
reading, actually,
And hell,
from what I was reading,
his history shows he won't even play hard.
well, from what I was reading, he's actually not eligible for the extension this year, like with his contract. Like, so he has to play on the contract and basically be a free agent next year.
So hold on. So he signed for the like
He
35
opted
million.
in, yeah,
Opted in for the 35 million.
because it was one of those like 2+1s or whatever, like the player option, but
So he
he's
opts
not
in
eligible
for the
for extension
35
right now.
million and he wants Philly to trade him to LA
Yes.
and then play out his 35 million in LA and
Yes. And then
then
he's a free
sign
agent next year.
next
Right.
summer.
Right. So maybe like we were talking
But
about,
there's nothing
but
that
there's no
owns
guarantee either
him
way.
to the
Right.
Clippers.
Right.
So he can go out there and play for the Clippers 1 year and decide I really want to be a Laker
Right.
and go upstairs
Yes.
and join the Lakers for a
Yeah. Get away
2 year
from the
deal.
ugly people, go upstairs and yeah. So
It's weird because like I don't understand. I don't understand. I know I don't want a guy to give away his leverage, and I do respect when players come out and they're honest. But I just want to know like what is your end game?
well, I think
Like
that's the issue right now between him and Maury is like Maury
why do you
probably
want out of Philly?
I'm thinking something happened where Maury either promised something because I think he took less money on the front side, or it was something along those lines. Like
Then why he could
there
have
was
just
some kind
taken
of
an
money
extension?
disconnect.
He could have just signed an extension with Philly and demanded the money.
Right.
I don't know. Like it's just. I mean,
But that
I'm not
goes
trying to
back to
count
the
his pockets.
but
I'm just
that's what
trying
I'm
to figure
saying.
out.
But I
I
think
just
that
don't
goes back.
understand where are you gonna go?
But I think that goes back to the relationship that him and Maury had. You know what I mean? Where one of the two is feeling like, yo, you lied to me or whatever. Like Maury's feeling like, hey, I did this for you. Like I got you out of Brooklyn, XYZ. Now you want out of here. Or Harden is like, hey, I left money on the table and whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't
But
know.
like it goes back to what Gilbert Arenas said. Is like I think it's one of these things you got to reflect on because I mean we talk about it now. Like when I was active duty, I'm gonna say my son was born in 2009. Uh, and I remember doing the math. I was like, okay, if I make it senior master sergeant, I could retire at 26 years. That puts me at 2026. So I will retire May 2026. My son would go into his senior year of high school that, that September and
Uh-huh.
I would be there for the whole senior year.
Right.
That he'd be my youngest son, and that was the plan. I was like, okay, because I was going to see all my kids through high school, and then like the last one was going to graduate, and I was going to be done, and then I was going to be like, peace, dad's out. Like that was like my plan. But then as you go in, it's like, all right, I made it to master sergeant. Then it was like, all right, this clock might be sped up a little bit, so I ended up retiring it closer to 22 years. But when I reflect back on it, I don't think like, damn, I really wish I would have made chief and done X, Y, and Z. I think I would have been good at it. I think I would have been good at making if I would have made senior, make chief. But like when you reflect on it now, I was like, okay, I had a good time. Yeah, I didn't get this rank. I didn't get this base. I wanted this job. I didn't get it, but I did get this. I did deploy here. I do have this memory. I do have this picture of me in Iraq. I do have these 4 years in Germany. So I do have things. So like if someone was like, "Hey, would you trade, and do 2 more years if it promised you chief?" I'm like, "No, like because I have what I have and I have the time that I have now because I am not active duty." So
Right.
yeah, it'd have been beneficial. And somebody else might say, you might have said, "You know what? Yeah, I would have taken chief. I would have done 24 years to make chief because I wouldn't want to do X, Y, and Z." And I don't think there's a wrong answer, but I think it's just an enlightenment piece when you are already done. I think what these players are doing now, it's the ring chase and it's not making any sense
Right.
because what you're trying to do
They don't have a plan.
you're ignoring all the other things you need. Like if you look at Denver's team, Denver had they drafted Nikola Jokic during the Taco Bell commercial. They had Jamal Murray, and then they just had pieces around, young pieces, veteran pieces that
And
all
Porter
work
fell into their lap.
fell right into their lap. They paid him his money. Aaron Gordon played for a couple of teams, and what he was doing in the playoff run, you didn't see that in Orlando. People remember him from the dunk contest, but you didn't see him running lanes, getting dunks like in game, getting lob passes in game, defending all on ball defender. Like he was like legit all ball defending, Jimmy Butler or Bam. And so it's like, but it's the same thing that Golden State got out of Wiggins. So a lot of these superstar guys have been superstars their entire NBA, through college,
Right,
NBA
right,
career. But now it's like, dog, winning teams don't need like individual James Harden. Winning teams don't need James Harden.
right,
Like the Lakers don't need James, and I think the Lakers can take all the time. They don't need James Harden. The
right,
Dallas Mavericks don't need James Harden because
right.
like you don't bring enough to the table at your status because you're not going to dive on the floor for balls. You're not going to play off the ball. You're not going to defend the other team's
Best player.
best player.
Right,
You're not going to rebound. You're not going to. We're not going to take the ball out of our best player's hands and give it to you. We're not taking the ball out of our second best player's hands and give it to you. So it's like the only teams I can really think, like back to Brooklyn, unlikely. Down to Miami, unlikely. Like I don't know if like the whole Heat culture thing. I don't know. Do you go to Milwaukee? Do you make a Drew Holiday, James Harden trade? But does he work as hard as Giannis?
but does he mess up Middleton's flow?
I mean, you can move him as a point guard, and Middleton can still be the two, but you would need James Harden to be like, "Yo, I'm full on third fiddle
Right,
all the 82 games."
and that was one of the complaints that we heard was that like he was missing, how it was in Houston. Like he wants to go back to being more ball dominant, more of a scorer that can facilitate versus the facilitator that can score if Embiid is
Then
having
go
an
to
off game.
Orlando.
You know what I mean? That
Like
actually
first,
wouldn't be bad. That actually
you
wouldn't be bad.
but think about it. You probably can't go to Orlando because they got young talent that
They
they
got
want to
young
develop.
talent and they're not near a
Like
championship.
what he wants to do, he has to go to a team, and he has to be willing to go, 30 and 52
But see, but that's why. But
to
see, but
play
that's
the way
but
he
to some
wants to
degree.
play.
But to some degree, that's why the Clippers work because Kawhi or Paul George or both are going to be out at some point.
But once again, they got to give up something. And
Right.
whatever when the Lakers traded all those pieces for Anthony Davis still was going to give you 20 points, 10 rebounds, 2.5 blocks. He was going to be a matchup nightmare for the other team's big man that could potentially get that guy into foul trouble. And he was going to do that consistently as long as he was healthy.
Right.
For a fact he was going to. Yes, you had to give up Lonzo Ball and Ingram and Josh Hart. Who else did they give up? Julius Randle.
Julius Randle. Yep.
So that's a lot of players to give up. But I'm getting 20 and 10, couple of assists, couple of blocks back. So now I just got to find a piece. I got to find a Rondo.
I gotta find KCP.
KCP. Can I get Kuzma? Because they kept Kuzma. Well,
Right.
can I get Kuzma to give me what Josh Hart was going to give me? Can I get KCP to give me the points that Lonzo Ball could potentially give me? Because you're guaranteed. But if you give up, like if let's say a team like Sacramento, if Sacramento decides, you know what, we want to give up. Who's that bulldog kid out of Baylor? Davion Mitchell, Malik Monk, and who else did they have? Keegan Murray. Right?
Uh-huh.
If they give up those three guys, because I'm assuming the money matches
Uh-huh.
for James Harden. Is James Harden going to give you what Davion Mitchell gives you?
No.
No. Is he gonna give you what Keegan Murray gets you, where he just waits for the ball and spot up shoots?
No,
No. Is he gonna give you what Malik Monk gives you, where like you can get some points, but you're kind of streaky? Probably,
probably.
but that's it. So
But he
I'm
also
down.
gonna want the ball, which takes the
He's gonna
ball
want
out
the
of
ball
De'Aaron's
way
hand.
more
Right,
than Malik Monk. So it's like
right.
I don't know where he goes where it
Maybe he's at
benefits
that
the team.
Carmelo point. Like I felt like there was a point where Carmelo got phased out of the league. Where his style of play was because they went to the analytics, so it was like layup or 3-pointer, all this in between, mid range, blah blah blah. And I felt like Carmelo got. So I think we're at that point with Harden, where
I think
like
Carmelo. I want to say he got blackballed because I think that
no, 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 no,
implies.
no, not blackballed. I
Yeah, I
just mean
think,
the game just changed to where his strengths weren't necessarily winning basketball anymore.
but that's the thing. Carmelo never gave you the other
The other
stuff.
stuff, right, right, right,
He gave you the matchups, like the Scoot Henderson conundrum is
right,
like, oh, he'll get up for the big game, like he'll defend
right,
Kobe all day, he'll
right.
defend LeBron, he'll defend D Wade, but it's like if he is playing a
Is
Tuesday
he
night
going
game
to
against
chase Keegan
Detroit,
Murray?
no, he's not.
You know what I mean? But yeah,
He
that's what I'm
wasn't
saying.
going to
That's
do
why I
that.
think James Harden is like a good comparison for that. Like, I think we're at that point where Harden obviously has lost a step. But I ain't going to say he's washed, but he's lost a step. And the game around him is getting quicker, where speed wasn't necessarily his thing to begin with. So I think we're just at that point where unless he does those things unless he takes that Ron Harper role,
Which he's not
he's
going to
which
do.
he's not going to do. He's done helping you be a contender.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you want to leave Philly, then you got to be prepared to go to a team that's going to go 30-52.
Yeah.
Because nobody else needs you. Like, no one, like, not. I don't want to be dismissive of him,
Nobody
his
with
talent and
championship
his career.
aspiration. You don't tip the scale
You
for
don't,
anybody.
yeah, you don't fit in there
And
because
that's how
you're
I feel
gonna.
about Dame to some degree. Like, you know what I mean? And most of that is probably his
It's
size more than anything.
I
But
think his contract. I think his contract is probably the biggest piece
yes,
that
albatross.
makes him not a viable candidate for a contender in a trade because it's just
But
gonna
see, but if he went to a
cost him
team
too.
like, but you brought it up. If he went to a team like Orlando, I think
Then
that
he's
could
just trade,
work.
like I said, he's trading apples for apple juice
No, no,
again.
I know, but they have the talent that Portland doesn't have. They have Bancaro, they have Wagner, they have Wendell Carter. So like, even though they're young, I mean, a year from now, that could be they could be on the level that say Brooklyn was at.
But that's the thing. He'd be on the same level that he was in Portland, and it's like, what's the point of coming? What's the point of being in fifth or sixth or eighth place out west just to go east and do the exact same thing?
Because we just saw a 8 seed get to the finals, and if you're
Yeah,
that dude,
but they didn't bring in a guy
no, they
to
didn't.
get
But
them
but
over the hump.
also, if you're that dude, then you're good enough to make up some of that difference. Like
Oh,
so
like I'm
so
saying,
so so we talked
yeah,
to
I didn't say like, but you're just doing the same thing.
no, but you don't, no, I get what you're
You're
saying,
not
but
getting
but
over
it's
the
but it's
hump.
like but it's like when we talk to people like Black Adam, and they say things like, this person is great. He just kept running into Steph, or he kept running into this person. He kept running into this person. Then at some point, maybe you're not as great as we think you are,
No,
because
but that's
you got
I
to
think
beat that person.
yeah, but if that
Clyde
person
Drexler. Clyde
if that
Drexler
person
took out the
always has a
Lakers.
better team, if that person's
No, no, I
always has a
know,
better
but
team, it's only Jordan scored 63 points against the Celtics, and they lost that game, and they lost that
right, they
series.
got swept.
Even though Larry Bird, I don't want to misquote, but he was like, that's Jesus playing
That's
in
Jesus. Yeah, dressed up as
disguised
Michael
as
Jordan.
Michael
Yeah,
Jordan.
yeah.
So even with that level of like accolades, his team still beat the Bulls because you're going to run into Steph, but if your team isn't good enough, your team isn't good enough, and that's the thing is like if you are James Harden, Dame Lillard, who else is trying to move? Like even like Kyrie last, I think Kyrie last off season what they were saying about Kyrie last offseason about him going to another team and not being is what they should be saying about James Harden. Because Kyrie going to any team last offseason, especially if
Right,
they could have
right,
afforded him, would have been like if he could have gotten to the Lakers, that would have been a benefit to the Lakers because Kyrie isn't a guy that relies on his size,
right.
like he's always been quick, and you can't most
And
people
he's
can't
still
guard him
young.
one on, and he's still young. So
Uh-huh.
I think people just want to just bestow this narrative upon him that he was this cancer to the team. And it's like,
Well, that's what I
well, look
told you a
look
couple
what
of weeks
Brooklyn look
ago.
what happened with Brooklyn.
That's what I
After
told
that
you a couple of weeks ago. Everything that they say about Kyrie
applies
applies
to
to
James.
Harden.
Yeah, and a
Yeah.
little bit applies to Dame Lillard because it's like you can't because Kyrie's never said anything about championships. Kyrie just didn't want it. Kyrie he wanted the vibe to be right. He wanted the energy to be right.
Right,
Remember, he was
right,
like burning sage and stuff like
right,
that.
right.
And he
He
reacts
wanted
to
to
the
make his
fans of
own
Boston.
path.
Yeah,
And he was good with whatever came of that path.
yeah. So he just was like, listen, I don't like the because like even at the loss, you could tell that I'm pretty sure the loss bothered him, but it wasn't like how Embiid was crying in the hallway after
Right.
losses and stuff like that. I
Well,
think
yeah, because
Kyrie
he
just
always says like
kind of
there's
had a
life
he had like
besides
a bigger
basketball.
the same
Yeah.
thing that Jokic says, like I want to go do this, I want to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And Kyrie can probably do that because he has a championship. He has he was a part of a historic team. He was a major catalyst to a historic team and a
Right.
historic,
Right. Right.
comeback. And people look at it like, oh, it was dumb for him to leave LeBron, but I think it was more like, I want to do this next thing. Like I don't
Right.
want to just be locked into
We won
the
the
guy.
championship. I'm
We
ready
won
for
a
the next
championship.
challenge.
I'm staying with LeBron until he's done playing in Cleveland. Because what was he going to do? He was going to go to LA with LeBron?
Just so we can win, even if we win more championships, you just go and tell me I was there for the ride anyway.
Yeah. So he was like, you know what? I'm from New Jersey. I'm going to go to Brooklyn and play. And I think he did well. I mean, granted, he got traded to Boston first, and that just didn't work out. But Boston still was a pretty successful team. He played a couple years there. I think this aura that they put around him as this team killer.
Yeah, who knows if he didn't have the
Everybody who
sinus
talks about
injury?
him,
Who knows if
everyone
they
who
didn't have the
talked about
sinus
him
injury,
talked
they
about
might
him.
have been in the finals. They might have beat Cleveland that year.
People talk about Kyrie with admiration. The guys in the league, when they talk about him, and you talk about him on a podcast, it's not a lot of. And people don't like Chris Paul, and the commentators love him. But players are like, yo, that's the dirtiest player in the league. Like Pat Bev was like, listen, you can ask around.
Yeah.
They're like, Chris Paul's the dirtiest player in the league.
Yeah, I'm not even a player in the league, and I feel both of those.
And everyone loves him. And Kyrie just banished as this bad guy because it's like, no. Like when people would talk about the vaccine, I know this is closing thoughts, we can go on forever. But he was like, I'm not going to judge him for making his decision, but you're hurting your team. Then you are judging them for making the decision not to get vaccinated. You are. Like, you can say, hey, I think he should have just played. I get it, but I personally think he should have played. You can't play both sides of the fence. Like I understand what he.
Well, it wasn't even him. It was the city that had a mandate that wouldn't allow him to play. So it's not like he was like
he could sit behind the bench. He could sit. He was sitting behind the bench in Balenciaga hoodies, but couldn't suit up and play basketball.
Yeah, so it's not like he said, "Yo, I just don't want to play tonight." Like the city said no, and then it was more so like, well, why should we play you if you can only play half the games? But then when their season started tanking, they brought him back.
And he was up 55 in Orlando.
Then eventually the mandate went away. So you know what I mean? So like people just be talking. As Rajon Lewis would say, real talk with Rajon, people saying words.
That's so simple and poignant, but it's perfect.
Yeah. That's all it is. And guys, this is what it is. Sports Reports is ordered. That is Mr. Logical. I am 2-5. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. Thank you for listening. We will be back next week. We still got the NFC North to go. We still got the NFC West before we hit the AFC. And then we might sprinkle a little bit of college in there for y'all too. So, what I'm saying, any parting shots?
You know what? Just sometimes you got no one to hold them, no one to fold them. You guys aren't using your leverage properly. Next CBA for all these organizations, you guys really need to call the baseball union leadership and find out how they did what they did, because baseball got everything they wanted.
Everything.
Defensive changes, offensive changes, payments, health plan, stadiums.
Hell, Trevor Bauer
contracts.
is even eligible to come back. You know what I'm
Yo,
saying?
they got everything that they wanted.
Yo,
holla at those guys. Listen,
all I'm saying is
pick up people's good habits, not their bad habits. NBA, NFL, PA, y'all need to holla at baseball.
Yeah,
And figure
just
out how
wait
to
till
get
we
this
hit.
squared away.
Wait till we hit year 5 or 6 of Sports Reports is ordered, and the Falcons trying to lowball Bijan Robinson. We gonna be saying the same thing. You know,
they're gonna franchise them
because
twice.
by then, by then, the CBA should be up again. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. But listen, get some good information, because I'm not sure you guys are getting the greatest bit of information from the people you currently are advising you.
And on that note, peace
love
out,
you, America.
We love you.
Leadership never stops.